Welcome back, everybody, to another fantastic episode of the Pokemon Adventures podcast. I am your host, Professor Chris G, and this week we are going over Chapter 6, everybody, and today's chapter is called Gyarados Splashes In. So, like I like to do on every Pokemon Adventures podcast, is to recap the previous episode. So let's go ahead and give a quick rundown as to what happened. So we start the episode off with Red knowing that he couldn't go to the Pokemon Center to heal his Pokemon, but he has to use his Poliwhirl and his Bulbasaur in the ring so he can go and fight to get his Boulder Badge, but he has a lot of competition before he even gets up to Brock to get his Boulder Badge. But he goes in, and the announcer's even surprised that Red is 1KOing all of the Pokemon that it's going up against inside of the boxing ring where they are hosting this Pokemon special. And Red gets all the way up to Brock, and then it's time to start using Pikachu because Poliwhirl and Bulbasaur are pooped, everybody. So they are out of commission. They cannot go any longer because if they go in there, they will indeed lose. Pikachu does not want to battle, but as soon as it gets hit in the head by a boulder, it gets mad. It starts attacking Red in the ring. Brock gets upset, starts attacking Pikachu. Red saves Pikachu from getting hit right head on by Onix by one of its tornado attacks, and Pikachu starts having better feelings towards Red to where it's like, man, you just saved me. Thank you. Thank you for that. You didn't really have to do that. I've been mean to you this whole time. So it starts listening to Red. It helps Red win his Boulder Badge in this episode. And that's about it. So after he wins his Boulder Badge, we see Pikachu still is up to its little antics as it goes in to shake Red's hand. And when it goes in to shake Red's hand, it starts shocking him around the park area that they were at and chasing Red around. And we go straight from that over to a brand new scene where we meet Misty. And Misty is being attacked by Gyarados. And this Gyarados is very, very, very enraged. And she's like, oh my gosh, Gyarados is about to use Hydro Pump. She has her Staryu out, and Gyarados goes in for the Hydro Pump, and she tells Staryu to get away, and that's where we go into Chapter 6. So it's time to start Chapter 6, everybody. And again, this is called Gyarados Splashes In, and we start with Misty kind of shielding herself, and Staryu is getting hit full blown with Hydro Pump and gets knocked right out. And it's like, Ray! And Misty runs over and it's like, Staryu! And she looks up at Gyarados. Why you? And then we hear something in the background. It's like, taking on a pretty big one, aren't you? And Misty's like, huh? And then we find out that it's Red. Let me help. And Misty's like, stay back, you. This is dangerous. And Red's like, I'll be fine. I'm not just any kid. And by the way, my name's not you. And then it clicks its Pokeball and it throws out Bulbasaur. Specifically, it's Red. And then he throws Bulbasaur out. And he's like, okay, Bulbasaur, go. And Misty's like, a Pokemon? You're a Pokemon trainer too? Gyarados uses Hydro Pump at this time. And Red's like, oh no, Misty's like, watch it. It's the hydro pump. And Gyarados uses hydro pump on Bulbasaur. And it's funny because Bulbasaur just plays in the water as it's getting hydro pumped right in the face, which in a way it doesn't make too much sense because Misty's Staryu is a water type and it was getting hit by a water move and got knocked out. Yet Bulbasaur, according to this manga, is getting splashed in the face and just dancing in the water. And Misty's like, huh? And then Red is like, heh, no water attack's gonna work on a grass Pokemon. And then Red's like, now it's our turn. Bulbasaur, attack! And then the next frame, we see a seed fly out of Bulbasaur's bulb, and it goes and hits Gyarados right in the middle of its stomach. Some vines start coming out, and we find out that it's Leech Seed. And Gyarados is in a lot of pain now. It's like, ah! And Misty's like, Leech Seed? And Red's like, you got it. And Misty's like, now's our chance. Use Recover, Staryu. And Staryu's like, real. And she's like, okay, Staryu, your injuries are all healed. And Red's like, hey now, that's a sweet trick. And Gyarados is just getting so much more irritated. And it breaks away from the vines. And Red's like, we should start double dating. And Misty's like, we should. And Bulbasaur is like, Bulbasaur. Staryu's like, ha! And then they're like, Vine Whip, Bubble Beam. And they both hit their attacks on Gyarados. And Gyarados gets hit. And Gyarados gets knocked out. And Red's like, and last but not least, the Pokeball. And he throws his Pokeball in. Boop! And he catches Gyarados right in the Pokeball. Gyarados doesn't put up a fight, and Red is like, got him. And Misty's just sitting there, and she's like, huh? And she flops to the ground, and she's like, phew. She's like, thanks a lot. And Red's like, one more time. The name's Red. He's like, I didn't expect to see a Pokemon that big, not out here of all places. It was wild, or was it? And we get a close-up of Gyarados, and Gyarados still looks real demonic inside of this Pokeball. Like, some of these early drawings of Pokemon are so much weirder than what we have today. And Misty's like, Gyarados is a water Pokemon, and it's not supposed to be living in habitats like this. Red's like, I figured so. What's it doing here? And she's like, that Gyarados isn't wild. It's my Pokemon. And Red's like, what? And she's like, I was raising it till last week when somebody stole it. When it came back, it was it wasn't the sweet Gyarados I knew anymore. And we have a frame of Misty just talking about Gyarados, and Gyarados being just this evil dragon right behind her. And then the next panel, she's like, I've been tracking it down. Not too hard to do since it's been destroying everything in its path. And Red's like, huh? Anyways, thanks for the help. Everything's okay. And Red's like, it is not. It is never okay when a Pokemon goes berserk. Those guys who stole Gyarados must be responsible for this. And he's like, I'm going to go kick their butts. And Misty's like, where do you think you're going? Where I'm, those thieves. You said they were. Where'd you say they were? She's like, listen, if I knew, don't you think I'd be there? And Red's like, hey, maybe the professor knows something. And Misty's like, huh? And we skip and we jump forward to Red and Misty at the Pokemon Center. And this is a very, very small Pokemon Center, according to this picture. But then they call Professor Oak on the computer. Oh, Red! It's been a while, Professor Oak goes. And Red looks back at Misty and he's like, that's Professor Oak. He's the world's leading expert on Pokemon. And Professor Oak is like, oh, shucks. And then Red's like, there are hundreds of varieties of Pokemon scattered all over Earth. And we get a panel of Bulbasaur, Gyarados, and Staryu. And then Red holds up his Pokédex up to the computer screen. And Professor Oak is like, getting closer to completing your Pokédex, Red? And Red's like, as a matter of fact, I am. I even got some new data today. Take a look. And then this is where we get the Pokédex entry for Gyarados. It says, Gyarados, number 130. Description, atrocious. The categories are type 1 water, type 2 flying. Its height is 21 feet, 4 inches. It weighs 518 pounds, and it knows Dragon Rage, Bite, and Hydro Pump. It says, the evolved form of Magikarp, rarely seen in the wild, huge and vicious. It is capable of destroying entire cities in a rage, can fire a hyper beam from its mouth. And Misty's like, a Pokedex? And Red's like, haha, yeah, look at this. And he's like, it's a high-tech encyclopedia. Whenever I catch a Pokemon, its data automatically gets inputted. And he's like, to input all the data on all the Pokemon, that's my life goal. He's like, I'll have to fight wild Pokemon and tough trainers on the way, but I'll be a top Pokemon trainer myself one of these. And then Professor Oak is like, thus clearly. Oh, I almost forgot. Hey, Professor, I have a question. And Professor Oak is like, weren't you paying attention? Because Professor Oak was talking on the computer screen, but Red wasn't paying any attention to Professor Oak. And this is where we jump forward. So it looks like Red told Professor Oak about what had happened to Misty's Gyarados. And Professor Oak is like, So the Pokemon refuses to listen to his trainer after just a few days. Sounds like the doings of Team Rocket. And Red's like, Team Rocket? And Professor Oak is like, Team Rocket, a secret society that uses Pokemon for evil. Recently, they're rumored to be conducting lab experiments on Pokemon. And Red's like, using Pokemon? And Misty's like, for lab experiments? And then Professor Oak continues, distressing, I know, but there is something you can do to help. On Mount Moon, just to your east, there is reputed to be a moonstone. And Red's like, what's that? A moonstone, they say, that is able to boost the power of a Pokemon enormously. It's likely that Team Rocket is after this stone. And Red and Misty seem just a little bit puzzled. And then we go straight from that to Red walking out of the Pokemon Center. And he's like, that does it. I can't wait to complete the Pokédex. But first, I'm going to find these Team Rocket guys. And I'm going to kick their... And then he's like, huh? And then he reaches into his pocket. And Misty is right behind him. And Misty is like, wait, I'm going with you. And Red's like, huh? Misty's like, Mount Moon is on the way to my hometown. If I go with you, I'm bound to run into a lot of trainers I know. I might be able to get more information on this Team Rocket. And Red's like, wait a minute. You don't think you can take on? And Misty simultaneously sticks her hand into her pocket and she takes out 6 Pokeballs, showing that she has 6 Pokemon on her. She has Staryu, Starmie, Gyarados, and then 3 more shadowed Pokemon that we don't get to really look at. She's like, I'm a water Pokemon trainer. The caves in the mountains are full of rock Pokemon. I think I can hold my own just fine. And Red's like, huh? She's like, I forgot to introduce myself. My name's Misty. I'm from Cerulean City. Nice to meet you. And she puts her hand out to shake Red's hand. And Red's like, and then she grabs Red by the hand and she's like, okay, then we're off. Full speed ahead. And they start heading up towards Mount Moon. And we go straight from there to the next scene, which says that it's at the caverns of Mount Moon. And this is where we see Team Rocket. And Team Rocket members are like, now entering cave interior coordinates A5. Still no sign of the Moonstone. And then someone goes, understood. Continue your search. And if you fools should dare interfere, meet them with extreme force. And that is where we end this week's chapter. So a lot's happened here. So there's a lot to really depict here. So the first thing that I want to kind of point out is Red literally captured Gyarados. He captured somebody else's Pokemon. So in the manga series, you can capture other trainers' Pokemon. At least that's the way that they're making it seem. Because Red didn't use Misty's Pokeball to return Gyarados back into it. He used his own Pokeball. And come to find out, it was Misty's Pokemon. So, I mean, of course, he gave it over to Misty. So Gyarados is not one of Red's Pokemon. And Professor Oak knows about Team Rocket as well. So, I mean, that's a little interesting. So Team Rocket must be causing a lot of ruckus these days when it comes to making the news. And it's funny to find out that Misty has 6 Pokemon as well. And I really do wonder if they say on Bulbapedia what Pokemon Misty has. So I'm going to go and try to look that up as of right now. But we also see that Team Rocket is doing some damage. So we don't have Jesse and James in the manga series. I mean, at least as of right now. And I have read a little further into the future of some of these episodes that I'm going to be doing. And I have not seen Jesse and James. So I take it that they're not in any of these chapters as I'm going through. So let's see. Bum bum bum. Here we go. So I just read Gyarados Splashes In. And let's see the Pokemon. We have Staryu, Gyarados, Bulbasaur, Starmie, Staryu, and Bulbasaur. So no, that is it. And yeah, it doesn't say anything about Misty's Pokemon on here outside of the ones that we were able to see in the drawing. So yeah, everybody. So I was right. I took a look and I tried. I looked at the Japanese version. It looks like she might have a Goldeen because I saw a little bit of an outline of Goldeen, but I couldn't make that out. So don't 100% quote me on that. But other than that, we are done. And the next episode is Raging Rhydon, everybody. So it looks like we're going to be seeing Rhydon in the next episode. But other than that, it's time to get the plugs in for this episode. Follow us at Poke Breakdown. That is where I will be tweeting out any and all updates in regards to this show and the Every Pokemon Episode Ever podcast with my co-host Dougie Fresh that drops every single Friday for you. And what episodes that you will be getting on a weekly basis here every Wednesday. Other than that, that's about it. Make sure you tune in this Friday for a new episode with me and Doug. Tune in next Wednesday to find out what happens. Also, go on patreon.com/everypokemon if you want to hear the next couple episodes from the Pokemon Adventures podcast, because they're all up there, everybody. That's your incentive to go over there and listen. And I'm trying to drop as many episodes as I can at a time over on Patreon. It's your incentive to go over there and listen to way more episodes in advance right on there. So, and I'm pretty sure by the time that you're hearing this episode, all 14 chapters should be up there. You can go on there and take a look. I will make sure to have updated feeds on there, just so if you're not subscribed, you can see what episodes are on there and take a look and see if it's worth you going over there. I think it is. You can go on there and also when you subscribe on Patreon, you are supporting this podcast. And when you support this podcast, your support goes a long way to help us do more for this show. But other than that, that is this week's episode. I am Professor Chris G, and I will see you guys next week for another episode, everyone. Have a good night, everyone.